Let me give you two scenarios. Scenario 1. A driver speeds past an officer in a neighborhood. The officer pulls him over, and when he walks up to the window, he's hit with a strong smell of alcohol. The original stop was for speeding, but now the officer is focused on a possible DUI. The driver fails a sobriety test and goes to jail. Is this action by the officer justified? Most people would say absolutely, but let me give you scenario 2. This time, a police officer is parked outside of a bar. A car leaves the bar and the officer begins to follow him. After about a mile, the driver commits a minor traffic violation. He changes lanes without signaling. The officer pulls him over and immediately starts looking for any signs of intoxication. Now, is this action justified? In the first situation, we had an officer pulling someone over for speeding and happens to find out he's drunk. In the second situation, we have an officer really fishing to find drunk drivers and using the changing lanes without a turn signal as the reason for pulling this man over to then find out if he's drunk. There's a technical term for this. It's called a pretext stop. And according to the United States Supreme Court, it is constitutional. But today, we ask the question, should it be? The only reason pretext stops are a thing is that police officers have to get around the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution protects citizens from unreasonable search and seizures. And what that means is that they can't just stop you and search you for no reason. They have to have a reason to pull the car over. And even after they pull the car over, they have to have a reason to search the car. They need probable cause. Pretext stops became the probable cause that allowed police officers to begin pulling over people at a much higher rate after a 1996 Supreme Court decision in the Wren case. Michael Wren is the passenger of an SUV in a high drug area. The driver of the car makes a right turn without a turn signal and speeds off at an unreasonable speed. An unmarked police car pulls it over. When the police officer walks up to the window, he sees 2 bags of what looks like crack cocaine in Wren's hands. He arrests them both and charges them both with the possession of approximately 50 grams of crack cocaine with the intent to distribute. Wren's attorney argued that the stop of the SUV was unconstitutional because the officer didn't have probable cause to believe that Wren was involved in illegal drug-related activity. By unanimous decision, the Supreme Court rejected this argument and held that the stop was constitutional, essentially deciding that such stops can be made regardless of the officer's true intentions. However, there are good arguments to be made against pretextual stops, and I'll give you 3 of them. The Fourth Amendment argument, the 14th Amendment argument, and what I'm calling the social argument. The Fourth Amendment reads that the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue, but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. The words to highlight here are unreasonable and probable cause. The question is whether it's reasonable for an officer to stop you and search you for a crime for which he has no probable cause. Remember, that's what's happening with pretext stops. An officer may have probable cause to pull you over because you didn't turn on your turn blinker, but they don't have probable cause to think that there's anything related to drugs or alcohol going on. To me, that's a clear violation of the Fourth Amendment. The 14th Amendment says, in part, that no state shall deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. This is commonly referred to as the Equal Protection Clause, and it means that the government, including police officers, cannot enforce the law differently based on race, ethnicity, or another protected class. A nationwide study of nearly 100 million traffic stops showed black drivers, compared to white drivers, were 20% more likely to be stopped by the police and almost twice as likely to be searched, while the white drivers were more likely to be carrying contraband. This is further supported by a 2013 study that black and Latino drivers in Illinois were twice as likely to be pulled over than white drivers, even though whites were, again, more likely to be discovered with contraband in their car. When the Wren case was decided 25 years ago, we may not have had all of these statistics, but now we do. Pretext stops disproportionately target people of color, and in my opinion, that is a violation of the 14th Amendment. The social argument asks a broader question. How do pretext stops affect the relationships between the public and the police? The overwhelming majority of pretextual stops don't result in drug charges, DUIs, or the prevention of some other crime. We never hear the news story of the police officer pulling somebody over and not finding drugs in the car, but that driver walks away having a negative experience. Pretextual stops erode public trust in the police, and they foster an adversarial relationship. No one, in my opinion, has summarized this better than Justice Sotomayor. In her dissenting opinion to a pretext stop case, she said this: "I would add that unlawful stops have severe consequences much greater than the inconvenience suggested by the name. This court has given officers an array of instruments to probe and examine you. When we condone the officer's use of these devices without adequate cause, we give them reason to target pedestrians in an arbitrary manner. We also risk treating members of our communities as second-class citizens. Although many Americans have been stopped for speeding or jaywalking, few may realize how degrading a stop can be when the officer is looking for more. This court has allowed an officer to stop you for whatever reason he wants, so long as he can point to a pretextual justification after the fact. That justification must provide specific reasons why the officer suspected you were breaking the law, but it may factor in your ethnicity, where you live, what you were wearing, and how you behaved. The officer does not even need to know which law you might have broken, so long as he can later point to any possible infraction, even one that is minor, unrelated, or ambiguous. We must not pretend that the countless people who are routinely targeted by police are isolated. They are the canaries in the coal mine, whose deaths, civil and literal, warn us that no one can breathe in this atmosphere. They are the ones who recognize that unlawful police stops corrode all our civil liberties and threaten all our lives. Until their voices matter too, our justice system will continue to be anything but.